What is going on, guys? A video a day, week 3. Let's get into it today. We're going to be looking at Rigoberto Uran's training videos on Instagram. He does some old school stuff and some interesting things in his training that he's videoed. So I'm going to break that down. So we're on the Rigo Go official Instagram page. So this is his clothing brand. They do some different kits. So they do a women's kit here. This is a Vuelta, a Go Rigo Go La Vuelta kit. Orange and yellow, fashion here. Is this any good? There's no color blocking. I'm not sure what Chris Miller would think about this one. Little discoloration there where it's getting stretched. So that's the kit side of thing. But on his Instagram account, he uploads a lot of training videos. So let's get stuck in and I'll call out things as they come. So here we've got Rigo doing, one of the things he does a lot is this overgeared work. So this is the first one where he's doing these standing sprints, overgeared. We can see here, bang, out of the saddle, elbows flicking left and right. So big, working on his maximal torque generation. So not looking for max power, but looking for max torque. So as much force going through the pedals as he can. What would he be doing this for? Probably to improve his max sprint power. And just maintain his muscular system, especially, these guys doing Grand Tours are doing massive training blocks. So it's important that, especially if they're not doing any gym work off the bike, that they do some sort of training that's more towards the strength side. This isn't strength training. This is nowhere near the amount of force you'd be generating in like a weight session, but it is more of it can be sort of a strength maintenance work. So he's got the moto behind him here. So, why has he got a moto? A couple of things. Obviously, if he's doing motor pacing, he'll have the moto there. He's training in Colombia. It's where he bases himself. So, firstly, for safety, a lot of these pros have a moto with them just because some of the places they're riding through in Colombia can be pretty dangerous. But over the border in Ecuador, so Richard Carapaz was listening to an interview or a video with him in it, and he was saying he actually has to have the moto follow him around on his training because he will get trucks and cars that see him and that just stop in the middle of the road and cause accidents to pull over and get a photo with him. So they don't even pull over; they just stop, hop out, and try and get a photo with him. So he actually has a. I'm not sure if this is a police moto or just a regular. Maybe this is his coach, but I know that Richard Carapaz has a police moto that follows him around for all his training. But let's jump into the next tab and see what we've got. So this is a session where he's just doing regular cadence climbing work, and I want to pause here on this. So we can look at this Garmin screen when it's not in the shadow. There. Okay, we'll pause it there. So we've got it in the he's got 3 data fields on here, and I'll kind of give my speculation why he might have that on. So he's got watts per kilo is the top field, so 4.54 right now. And then why would he be using watts per kilo? A lot of these pros, especially the more experienced ones, that are doing Grand Tours, it's all just watts per kilo. So they know, okay, intermediate stage, we're going to be doing 4 watts per kilo up the climbs. Final climb, we'll be doing 6 watts per kilo. All their training is watts per kilo based. The watts are kind of irrelevant. Whereas you and I, we might be doing more power based. So saying, okay, I want to do so and so watts for this effort and then repeating it and things like that. These guys are just all, especially if they're doing a block into a Grand Tour, it's all sort of about fatigue resistance and race replication. So they're using watts per kilo. So the moto might be, if this is his coach on the moto, they're trying to hold him and keep him at a certain watts per kilo band. They've then got heart rate down there. So this is picking up the heart rate strap that he'd be wearing. So why would he be wearing heart rate? Maybe certain efforts, the coach says, okay, get behind the moto. I'm going to hold him at threshold heart rate sitting behind the moto. Could be using it for things like that. The final one down here is actually gradient. If we can see that. So they've got the gradient on there of the road. So what would they be using the gradient for? So he's on 5% gradient here. Just speculating here, but what they might do is the motor might sit behind him when they're at 5% and above, and then when it flattens off, the motor might pull ahead, let's say under 3%, and then Rigo might tuck in behind the motor and they might do efforts like that. So simulating having a train and having, let's say, Ineos riding on the front and then just tucking in when the gradient gets a little shallower. That's what they might be using that for. But interesting there, I've never really... The whole motor pacing thing is not something I've, as a coach, really spent much time getting into because it's very rarely used by athletes. So interesting to see the potential methods they're using there. Next tab, we have some more overgeared sprints. So if we look here, he's in a massive gear, almost down the back of the block. Elbows are flicking out again. Big maximal torque efforts here. And the description he's got, I'm going to try and decipher this. If you read Spanish, Colombian, Spanish, I hope that's Spanish. That'll be very embarrassing. If you speak this language, let me know. But they've got a GT5. What would GT5 be? Training zone 5? This looks like more like a sprint though. I'm not sure. So I'm not sure what GT5 is. 6%, maybe that's the gradient of the road he's on. 35R, 35 RPM maybe. I mean, this looks higher than this. Looks more like 50 or 60 RPM. Maybe even higher. So I'm not, maybe that he's starting at 35 RPM, maybe. 167F. F. Maybe that's heart rate. So he's saying there he's getting up to 167 heart rate and then 350 W for watts. This again looks like more than 350 watts. So if you know what this means, and which this might be related to, let me know. But yeah, so more just over-geared sprint. So working on his ability to generate maximal torque. Not so much worried about the max power in these ones he would be doing. Next tab. What did I bring this one up for? Oh yeah, so have a listen here. This is... So, half of these videos, the freaking bottom bracket is absolutely going mad. Have a listen. It's creaking every pedal stroke, so I'm not sure what's going on here. He's on the Cannondale, the new Super 6, but I don't. Maybe there's no good mechanics in Colombia who can't get the bottom bracket service. But yeah, half these videos really loud creaking, and geez, that'd really annoy me if I was doing these long rides. But here, so he's doing a normal sort of climbing effort. Next tab. Have a listen again for the bottom bracket. That's terrible. That would just kind of get that fixed anyway. But what he's doing here, so he's doing some regular cadence acceleration sprints. These don't look like max sprints. They look more like maybe he's doing some 30-second accelerations. Now he's got the bib straps down, going for the tanning look. So I'm guessing this might be at the end of the ride. If he's got his jersey off, bib straps down, and maybe he's just doing some 30-second sprints on fatigue legs, working on his fatigue resistance, making sure he's got that punch at the end of a long ride there. So look at that tan. He doesn't even have a jersey tan, so he must do this pretty often because he doesn't even have the classic arm tan like most riders. Interesting. Next tab. Moving on. So I had this one off mute because of, again, the bottom bracket, but I think we've done that now. So he's doing seated accelerations starting at a low speed and a big gear. So he's starting off really working on his seated maximal torque. So the other ones he was doing were standing maximal torque. So you can see he's slow rolling up a hill and then bang, just really trying to get on top of the gear. So big torque he's putting out. Not quite so much big power. Because you need cadence, you need a higher cadence to generate more power. So he's not too much worried about the power, more worried about the torque he's doing, again, doing it in the saddle. So interesting here, so in terms of seated versus standing power, I've found for most riders, it's generally an 80% rule. So if you look at your 5-second peak standing power and your 5-second peak seated power, I usually find for most people it's around 80%. So maybe he's looked at some sort of metric like that and seen that maybe his seated power is lacking, and he's lacking that ability to generate torque purely through his legs without the momentum of his body weight. So he's just working on his seated power here. That'll probably carry over as well to his standing sprint. So this is a similar thing. So he's saying here 20 seconds. So 20-second accelerations at 40, starting at 40 RPM. This would be above 40 RPM now. It's probably closer to 70, 80. So big gear, standing from a low speed, bang. So basically the exact efforts he was doing in the previous tab, but he's doing them standing now. So just a lot of torque generation. He obviously finds it works for him. Pretty old school approach. Science on this, not quite as well established, but it's something I prescribe as a coach to athletes, and I do personally as well. I find you can really feel a difference doing some of this over-geared work in terms of how you feel on the bike, especially like in terms of stability. If you're able to do 3 or 4 minutes at threshold at sort of 40 RPM, when you go back to your preferred cadence and focus on power, you can really feel a lot more stable through your trunk and your hips. So, you know, I definitely think there's a place for this in a training program. So I'll leave that video there. Hope you found this one interesting, and I'll catch you in the next video.